I'd like to call this meeting to order, please, and welcome everyone who's here in person and those watching virtually. We have every member of the town council is here, and would you please stand for, oh, I'm sorry, we also have Mr. Gravier, our town manager, town clerk Molly, Daisy, and Will Wharton, our IT person. Now can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, welcome everyone. The first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. The second item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held on March 18th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any corrections, any changes? Okay. Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the executive session held on March 18th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any changes? Okay. Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the public meeting held on April 12th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any changes? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. All right, next on the agenda is the approval of the financial report and the approval of the tax adjustment list number 1. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mayor. This report covers the budget through April 30th, 2022. This is the first report for the fiscal year 2023. We are 8% through fiscal year 2023. On the revenue side, we've collected 4.4% of the budget revenue compared to 4.9% at this time last year. On the expense side, we've expended 7.4% of the budget amounted compared to 6.2% at this time last year. Recognizing that this report is subject to audit, I respectfully move that the council accept and approve the unaudited report.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
The first quarter, the 2023 first quarter tax assessment list. You have before you the first quarter list of properties that require tax adjustments. These adjustments are a result of additions, renovations to existing properties, or new construction. I move that we approve the list as presented.
Second.
Any questions? Any comments? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. The next item on the agenda is, will be a couple of things. First, I'd like to make an announcement. I went to the Valor Awards and that's an annual event that celebrates and recognizes our first responders, fire, police, and EMS. And this year's winner for the Policeman of the Year was Sergeant Chuck Sharp. And I think you can recall the incident that brought him this recognition. If you recall, last May, we all woke up one morning and there were about 12 businesses on the boardwalk that had been graffitied, or what's the word for it?
Deface.
No, there's another word, but anyway.
What's that?
And tag,
yeah.
thank you.
That's it. Tag.
And it cost about over $100,000 worth of damage, which that blew my mind away. I didn't know that. I learned that from the chief. And they made the mistake then of tagging a car in Ocean City, a police car, and that's when they were caught. They were processed in Ocean City and released, and the Bethany Beach Police Department was not alerted to that fact until afterwards, after they had been released. And when they found out who it was, our Sergeant Sharp proceeded to look for them. They didn't have a Bethany Beach address, but he figured out where they might have been staying, vacationing. And he went there and he spotted a vehicle, an SUV with an interior light on, And upon further investigation, he discovered the 2 skateboards that had been used and cans of aerosol paint. He ran the plates, and they discovered that they were, the last name matched the names of one of the people who had been arrested in Ocean City. And so he made the arrest, and they have been, I guess the hearing was in the Sussex County Family Court because they were under the age of 18, but they were ordered restitution too. So thanks to the efforts of Sergeant Sharp, they didn't get away with it. And the other are EMS for the Bethany Beach Volunteer Fire Company and EMS, auxiliary and everything. They didn't nominate a single person. They nominated, well-deserved, the entire department, because everyone there contributed and everyone sacrificed during the year with training and setting up and doing all the jobs that had to be done. And we're very proud of them, and they deserve that award. So those are the 2 awards those are the 2 things I wanted to mention. But now if I could have a microphone, I'd like to, do you have one over here?
Faster, Will.
Every year we have the distinct privilege of presenting 2 donations to the public servants who really help, well, the public servants who help with our town of Bethany Beach. The first one this year that we're going to present is to our Bethany Beach Volunteer Fire Company, and we are privileged to have Assistant Chief Brian Martin with us. Brian, could you come up, please? And as you know, the Bethany Beach Fire Department and every fire department, EMS, are among the most dedicated public servants a community can have, and we're very lucky and blessed to have them. When you don't stop and think about it, their area that they cover is 17 square miles. They have, about 10,000 homes, and they have a population that ranges somewhere between 2,500 in the off-season to 30,000 or more in season. They do a tremendous amount of work. Last year, they averaged over 400 calls on the fire side, and on the EMS side, over 1,000. So we are very grateful, and we are honored to have you here, Brian. And I'm going to present this to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And our next one goes to, each year we present a check to the Friends of the South Coastal Library for the benefit, for the programs they put on and help the South Coastal Library. And I'd like to invite Norbert Craich, who's the president of Fossil Up. And I had the privilege of serving on the Friends of the South Coastal Library board for a couple of years, and I know firsthand the great work they do and the great work that Norbert does as president. You may not know it, but the South Coastal Library is a county library. It's funded by Sussex County, but for the operational expenses and employees. And we wouldn't have all of those additional programs in the South Coastal Library, the events, the classes, and everything else, if it wasn't for the money that was donated by the Friends of the South Coastal Library, the money they raise each year. And they have the classes there, they have computer programs for children, they have the concerts, lectures, and things like that. Yep. I'm going to, and Norbert, I'm going to ask him if he can give a plug for their upcoming event.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Town Council, and thank you, Cliff. Many of you have served us on the as volunteers for the Friends of the South Coastal Library, and we greatly appreciate that. And we really appreciate all the work that Rosemary has done over the years for the library and for the Friends group. We've been a little bit on the back burner for the last couple of years due to we know what, but we're finally breaking free, and we're hopeful that COVID is behind us, so we're ramping up all our programs again. But things like the support from the town are so welcome. We couldn't do it without folks like you.
You're supposed to talk about
I will. But, and one of the things that we have ramped back up after 2 years, well, last year we had it, but it was virtual only, is the Beach and Bay Cottage Tour. And we're having it this year, actually having it in person. We have not had it in person for 2 years. This year is the first year in 2 years we have. So go to fossil.com or beachandbaycottagetour.com and buy your tickets and support it. It's going to be great. We have 12 homes on it this year, 5 of which you can visit in person. All 12 you can see on the video. So thank you very much, Rosemary. Thank you, Council. We greatly appreciate your help.
And last but not least, you may not know it, you may not be aware of it, but this, in May, we give special recognition to police departments throughout the country. And we are privileged to have with us today Chief Redmond. Would you come up, sir? How you doing? I'm just going to read what we are presenting to Chief Redmond. During the month of May each year, communities throughout the country recognize their police departments. It's an opportunity for us to express our deep appreciation for your outstanding service to our community. We are proud of your recognition for professional excellence by the preeminent Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, but we already knew that. I just say one thing about that. If you're not familiar with CALEA, it is a preeminent recognition. It's nationwide. You have to fulfill some very high standards. And in Delaware, there are only, I believe, nine agencies. And the smallest is Bethany Beach. They are in a league with Delaware State Police, Newcastle County Police, Dover Police, Wilmington Police, University of Delaware Police, Milford, I think, Newark, Millsboro. And then we have Bethany Beach, who is the best among them. Very proud of that, we are, yes. And we really appreciate they give service 24/7. We're aware of the challenges for law enforcement officers today, for each of you, and especially with the growing need for law enforcement time and attention because of the increase in the number of permanent residents and visitors to our town every year. And you continue to face these challenges. Know that you have our support, our strong support, and it's not too much to say we're all one family. We also recognize and appreciate the many personal sacrifices you and your families make on our behalf to keep Bethany Beach the safe and family-friendly town it is. For all that, we are very proud of you and are grateful for your service today and every day. Sincerely, Town Council. Thank you.
Mayor, thank you. If I may, behalf on the entire Bethany Beach Police Department, Mayor, Council, Mr. Gravier, thank you for your support, your unconditional support, even in the bad times we've had. It's so much appreciated by my men and women of the police department. We all recognize that. We thank you very much.
Thank you.
34.
34 years. He started when he was 10. Oh, 12, excuse me. Thank you. Okay. Now we go into our report section. The next item on the agenda is the report from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Mr. Boswell.
Mayor, Council, we had a meeting last month, and at that meeting, we had discussed a tree ordinance. No resolution or recommendation at this point. Best practices on on plants and trees that are not native to the area. Again, no final decision has been made to recommend forward on that. We did begin work on a greening of Bethany section for the 10-year plan. That's currently under development by the Planning and Zoning, and hopefully we'll have that done fairly soon. And that's it. We will be meeting tomorrow on a couple items. Any questions?
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Boswell.
Okay, and then report number D is the same as the one I just got, because I'm down here twice. So.
Yes. It's on there twice. A and D.
A and D.
I think we should make him give it again.
Yeah, I think he needs to stand up.
Should do it again.
That's right.
Word
An
for
audit.
word. For
Yeah.
word. He gets double credit.
Fixed it.
Okay, next is a report from the Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Committee. Ms. Denault.
Thank you, Mayor. Unfortunately, I had to be excused from this meeting, but it was a very eventful meeting. We had an update from Mr. Gravier that Mayor Hardeman is leading an initiative with the with the Delaware League of Local Governments to become a part of the safe system approach in letting municipalities set their own speed limits. I'm sorry, I'm reading from the minutes, and I would encourage all of you to look at the minutes that are on the website, because there's just way too much here for me to read. Okay. The traffic problems coming out of Bethany West on Route 26 by the bicycle store and the diner were looked at, and Bethany commissioned their engineers to look at the problem. They have a resolution and will be taking bid in order to solve the issue. Unfortunately, the company has been impacted by resignations and hasn't happened as quickly as we would have liked. But as soon as it's staffed, it will move ahead. And we also had a study finalized for from DelDOT for a pedestrian light that was requested near DeFebo's, and their response back said there's no need to add a crossover with lights at this time. The Collins Street project is back on track. Let's see. It also will include a pedestrian walkway at the library going from Kent to Wellington with flashing lights. The town of Bethany Beach has not received feedback yet from the engineers, but when they do, the town will look into the potential impact to the property owners, and that is in reference to expanding the walkways to 8 feet. Of course, there'll be public hearings held, one for Collins Street and the homeowners on Wellington who would be impacted by this project. Sergeant Foley gave us an update on and actually finalized the, what was this? A video for, that was done on April 28th. And this was to help us, I'm sorry. All right, we had gotten volunteers who were enacting issues that we have with street crossings and with bicyclists, and it went very well. Sergeant Foley continued his annual, safety seminar at Sea Colony for the J1 students, and the town will be doing a new educational video. Okay, this is with Julie. It'll be posted on the website. It will be a 3 to 5 minute rundown of traffic study and motor vehicle awareness. And the WAVE project in Bethany that Mr. Rosenblatt is working with our assistant town manager, Mrs. Tiemann. They're having a design company review and edit a new logo for this. What we hope to have will be a pamphlet that we can hand out that is going to outline all of the things that the town has been trying to, get into people's heads about safety. And Mrs. Fogash, did I forget anything? Okay, Mayor, did I forget anything? I'm sorry.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Denault. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is Cultural and Historical Affairs Committee, and Mr. Shepley will be reading the report from Mrs. Olmsted.
Thank you, Mayor. The Cultural and Historic Affairs Committee met on April 20th and again on May 18th, 2022. Scheduling of docents for the Dinker Irvin Museum was discussed at both of these meetings. The grand opening, held on April 28th, was a great occasion and a true celebration of several years of planning and work. The museum is now open on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays from 9 a.m. until 12 noon, with 2 docents in attendance. The museum is being enthusiastically received by those who have visited during these 2 to 3 weeks. And I can say, I can agree with that. It's really worth a visit. They did a great job. At both meetings, the committee discussed plans for Perriers Day 2022. Due to COVID, we have not held any Perriers Days events for the past 2 years. We have had communications from our friends in Perriers who canceled their plans to visit Bethany also due to the virus. We will be celebrating the occasion with a special bandstand performance and other things on Perriers Day, July 27th this year. The committee is working on adding a few additional Bethany houses to the Heritage Trail. We are currently working on contacting homeowners of identified locations in order to gather information about these homes. CHAC will next meet on Wednesday, June 8th at 1 p.m. That is the report, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shepley. The next item on the agenda is a report from the 4th of July Parade Committee. Mr. Fry.
Yes, Mayor, the July 4th Parade Committee met on Tuesday, April 26th. Julie Molesky updated us on the bands and she has signed up and other arrangements. Jerry Morris is working hard with judges and prizes for the floats. Our Grand Marshal will be Carol Olmsted, honoring her many years of service to the town and the grand opening of the Dinker Cottage Museum, which we just heard about. Ray and Chris Allmiller have expertly organized our parade T-shirt sales effort, and the T-shirts are now sorted, folded, and on sale on the boardwalk events like tonight and tomorrow night. And our next meeting will be on Thursday, June 2nd at 9 a.m.
Thank you, Mr. Fry. The next item on the agenda is a report from the Audit Committee. Mr. Peterson.
Thank you. The Audit Committee met last Friday the 13th and reviewed the opening of our external audit for this year. We met with Herb Geary from TGM Group, and he reported that Miranda Todd and Jessica Shahadi had been working for the past week or so on information provided by Janet and her staff, and that last week we're here working on site. They've complimented how well prepared Janet and her staff were, and that the audit's right on schedule. The town's doing very well, they reported, particularly in transfer tax revenue. Mr. Geary spent some time talking to the committee about the fact that TGM Group is now joining an organization called UHY LLC, an accounting firm that's based out of Columbia that's the 28th largest accounting firm in the country. They specialize in government audits as well, just like TGM does. So they're using it as a resource. There's a lot more people that specialize in little obscure parts of government accounting. They help them with recruiting, they help them with training, so it's a real asset to them, but TGM can still maintain their autonomy, so they're really kind of excited about it. He gave us a couple of examples of things they'd had trouble with, and that someone there knew all the answers right away, so they're happy. We're still awaiting the report from the state on the retirement fund, and that's really the only missing link on data that's required to finalize the financials. So as soon as they get that, they can get working on cleaning up the financials. Mr. Geary also said he'd read over John Morton's internal audit reports and was really impressed with the work he was doing and how much in depth he was. Also recommended that we continue to have an internal auditor just for the protection it provides, in which most towns lack. Committee discussed the 5-year agreement with TGM because that's expiring after this audit. We asked them to please submit another proposal, and we will take a look at their proposal as well as how well they performed and see whether we want to go outside for bids or not probably at our next meeting, which is tentatively scheduled for Friday the 22nd at 10 a.m. In order to close out the audit. So, questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peterson. The next item on the agenda is a report from the town manager, Mr. Gravier.
Mayor, council, as if we didn't have anything to report until the storm. We can talk about the storm, certainly. The storm of 62 in the day was known as the 5 high tide storm because it lasted through 5 high tide cycles. It was stronger than what we just saw here in Bethany, but the one we saw in Bethany lasted almost 12 high tide cycles. And if it had not dropped off, it dropped about 30% in strength after the first 36 hours. If it hadn't made that drop, the damage we would have seen here, especially to the dune and the beach, would have been more significant than it already is. Immediately after the storm, the town was able to open 7 ramps. What they weren't able to do was to open the ones that are immediately adjacent to the boardwalk. And when those ramps are constructed, they are layered in clay and sand and cloth. So you can't just push sand or move sand around them or to them. You need to do something different to make them functional. So we were not able to open them. Because we are scheduled for replenishment here this fall, the Department of Natural Resources, the Delaware Department of Natural Resources, decided that they would cut into the existing dune and create paths in the sand in the existing dune. And when they did that, and they did that just here late this week, we were able to open up the ramps on the face of the boardwalk. None of the ramps are in the condition that we would like. Some of them will be problematic throughout the summer. Some of them have more angle, are steeper than we would like. The sand isn't as compact as we would like. And as I said, generally the paths off the boardwalk are comprised of clay, cloth, and sand, so they present, again, a firmer surface. The entire summer, pathways and access ways will be a work in progress. You'll notice, if you've been to the beach at all, that you can walk to the edge of the ramp, and some of the ramps make a 90-degree turn. They go to the beach. They're not safe at this point in time, especially probably for young children, because you could just walk off the edge. So this weekend, with whatever staff we have available, and definitely on Monday, we'll be putting snow fence on the turn there and all the way to the beach to make sure people don't step off the ramp off the ramp, and some of the heights are rather unusual. That in itself is going to be an issue for Public Works because the ramps are not that solid when they bury the post. It's going to be a tricky thing for them to accomplish. But we're fortunate. We had our normal flooding. It's not nuisance flooding if it goes on for 6 or 7 days as it did here. It's the type of flooding that actually impacts quality of life. I would note, and I'll mention the Bladder Dam here, the Loop Canal Dam, if you will, in a minute, but if that dam had been in service and operational, we would have had no flooding in Bethany Beach. They would have prevented all the flooding that we saw, the flooding on Pennsylvania, the flooding on Evans and Tingle. It would have prohibited that. And that's something we need to keep in mind as we all work to try to make that dam a reality. Work on the dam is progressing well. McCormick Taylor met on site with staff, with their associate surveyor and their geotechnical staff, the staff that will be doing borings around the site as we work to make sure that the dam is constructible and we do preliminary design work. Staff also met with McCormick Taylor personnel to take a look at the land strip at Lake Bethany. That is going along very well also. We should have design documents in hand. The permitting process is finally moving ahead. I would note that our Assistant Town Manager has done some great work in looking for grant monies for that land strip work, and also some money, some grant requests here also to help with the Collins project as that moves forward. Mr. Peterson had just mentioned the audit. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Janet Connery for the excellent work she does. When you attend the meetings or listen to the minutes of the meetings, the auditors are just very impressed. She makes their job very easy, and she does an excellent job, and she's an essential reason we are as fiscally sound as we are. And again, the note that Mr. Peterson referenced, I don't know of any other municipality, certainly along the coast that I'm aware of, that hires and retains an independent auditor on staff to work over a number of different issues, and that's significant for us, and I think speaks well of the town. Another thing to take note of right now, and Mr. Peterson also mentioned transfer tax. This is the first month since COVID where we've actually had a significant downturn in transfer tax. The dollars are small, but the number is significant. I think it was 46%, Mr. Shepley, as I recall.
Yeah.
So it's something I think we need to look at and be aware as we plan into the future. Seasonal hiring was a problem for us last year. It's a problem for us again this year, most especially in Public Works. Public Works staff is down at least 14 or 15 from where we would like to be. We have advertised everywhere we can think of. We have posters on boards in all the schools in the areas, the community colleges. We have raised our hourly rate to be competitive with other jurisdictions, and everyone is doing that. You can walk into Food Lion and see that Food Lion is offering to pay you anywhere from $15 to $18 an hour, and they're having the same sort of problems we are. It's something we're going to have to deal with again this year. We'll be a little bit better off because we increased the size of staff, full-time staff, with the idea that would help offset part of the problem we would have with seasonals. The police department is off about 3 or 4 hires, down from what they want to be, and to make their issue a little bit more significant, they have 3 or 4 of their returning seasonal officers who have open applications in full-time police departments who may be hired, which would bring us down in that number even more. We began a policy this year, the out-of-town shuttles that drop people off here on Garfield Parkway just south of Pennsylvania Avenue on the north side of the roadway have become a little problematic with their frequencies and the number of drop-offs they're making. We are regulating that this year, and we are mandating that you can only enter town only once in a certain period of time. We're trying to monitor that with parking staff, and we'll see if that makes any sort of a difference with some of the congestion we have here, and certainly the appearance that the shuttles are overused and creating their own problems. I would mention that the Poseidon Festival starts this Friday, the 27th. Julie's done a great job with that again. She has a lot of things planned for the weekend, and it's certainly worth taking a look at. And Mayor, I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Gravier. I just wanted to mention that I think the Public Works Department did an incredible job after the storm. I mean, being down on people, they took care of the dunes, they took care of the crossovers, in addition to taking care of the trash and mowing lawns and everything. So I think, just please thank them for doing the incredible job they did.
I will.
Yeah.
I would note that our Public Works Director is just coming up on his 40th year here, and I'm pleased to be able to tell you that he almost lost his truck to the Atlantic Ocean this morning, but he was able to save it. So if you see Brett, please congratulate him. It's nothing he wants anybody to know, but it got close for him, so yes.
And we also had a lot of good work done by DENREC, too.
Yes,
and the Corps
we're
of
very
Engineers,
appreciative.
yeah.
They were very responsive, and we are fortunate, again, that replenishment is coming in the fall.
Yes.
Otherwise, they would not have opened those walkways off of
They wouldn't have.
beach. One thing, and I think the mayor and I were talking about it, joked a little bit, we buried the steps that we constructed. The last time we had the dune just wash away. We took the railings down. If the storm had kept up, we'd have just had the steps ready. It was a mixed bag there, so.
It was a brilliant idea. You were forward-thinking. Thank you very much, Mr. Gravier. Okay, before we go any further, the next item on the agenda is public comment regarding agenda item, anything that is not on the agenda today, if anyone has anything they wish to say. Okay? You had your chance. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the first item under new business, discussion, consideration, and possible vote on an ordinance to amend Appendix 4 Bethany Beach Non-Residential Design Review Guidelines by amending the membership of the Non-Residential Design Review Committee by requiring it to consist of a member of the Town Council in place of the Town Council's liaison on the Planning Commission. Mr. Kilmer.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Back in 2006 is when the non-residential design review guidelines were adopted. They were a work of the Planning Commission, now it's Planning and Zoning Commission. And the whole purpose was to focus on the fact that while we have a lot of zoning code to deal with, most of the properties here in town, but not for the non-residential properties, especially when it came to design. There's a certain degree of, what a lot of people think of what the culture and the beauty of our town is, and we wanted to have some control about, the exterior of what these buildings look like, and also the signage that dealt with, specifically with non-residential. And the rationale of having the town council representatives on the Planning and Zoning Commission was because of the familiarity that person would have to both the planning, to the town code, as well as the workings of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So, I mean, at this point, I think it is a good move, just making a member of the town council as not have to be a liaison to the Planning and Zoning Commission. They're also required to changing our town code, not just our non-residential design guidelines. That'd be section 425-113 membership of the non-residential design review committee. So that language have to be changed in our town code also. This is a first reading, so I guess our.
Is that because part of the zoning we had a hearing on it, didn't we?
You don't, this is, you can vote on this now?
This is a vote on it, yeah.
So, with that being said, I'd like to make a motion to basically change the requirement for the membership of the non-residential design review committee simply to a member of the town council and not the town council represented on the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Shepley?
Does it not preclude the same council member from being on both? Okay.
It does not.
So we could have the same council member, but we
Correct.
could also have two different ones.
Yes.
Thank you.
Gives us more flexibility.
Right,
And you
right.
still have a member of the Planning Commission on there,
Right.
As well as the building inspector.
as well as?
As well as the building inspector, who's.
Yes, the building inspector, who's also a liaison with the Planning Commission.
But also note, for the record, that we also have to change the town code also, not just the design review code.
Okay, thank you. Before we vote, is there anyone in the audience who has something they would like to comment on? Okay. We have a motion on the floor and the second, and this, because we had a hearing on it, it's in the Planning and Zoning Commission portion of the town code. This will be the only hearing, the only reading we have on it. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on an ordinance to amend Section 425-2 by adding the terms natural area and pervious materials in the definitions and word uses in section 425-2. And also, I think we're going to combine this, aren't we?
I think
Okay.
so.
And we combine that with item C on the agenda, which is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on an ordinance to amend section 425-27 by adding an additional paragraph to address ground covering restrictions permitted on residential lots. Mr. Edmondson.
Thank you, Mayor. As you all may know, the Planning and Zoning Commission has been working on language to increase the amount of pervious area on residential lots and limit the amount of impervious area on residential lots. Since we last talked about this, our town manager has some more information he'd like to share with us, so I'll pass it over to Cliff.
Mr. Edmondson, we asked our environmental engineers, and we're using McCormick Taylor for most of our geotechnical work and environmental engineering, to review the draft ordinances that planning had been working on, and with the idea to see what they suggested might help make them better and more comprehensive. And what they have done is come back and made a recommendation to us that they would like to work with the Planning Commission to develop a very comprehensive ordinance that deals with a multitude of best management practices when we talk about stormwater management. They have an engineer, the lead engineer, that just completed work for Low Country, the southern Low Country of South Carolina, which is comprised of the 4 southernmost counties in South Carolina. Geography is very similar to what we have here. That is very, very comprehensive. This is the manual that they created, and it's exceptionally thorough. It's creative. It has a lot of explanation and a lot of things that you all could possibly work to accomplish for Bethany Beach, and meld your 2 ordinances, proposed ordinances, into and develop, again, a set of standards that would be best management practices from a number of different areas, just not pervious surfaces. I'd like to suggest that you consider, and the council consider, tabling these 2 ordinances at this time, and in tabling them, they would still have, Susan would still have the ability, the building inspector will still have the ability to deny construction if it doesn't adhere to what's listed in your 2 draft ordinances, prohibit that until you completed work on a maybe a more comprehensive best management practices for stormwater management. So that's a thought I'd like to offer to you and to the council, something we could look at now. And this is worth just taking a look at. I'll send the link to your chair, and he can send it to the Planning Commission members just to go through. And it's not just what to do, it's why you're doing it and what impact it has. It's a great document. And again, this young lady that created this is available to work with planning.
Do you want?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to briefly look at some of those materials, and I think they would afford an opportunity for alternate methods of complying with the spirit of the ordinance, the draft ordinance. So I think it would be great. Obviously, there's members of the Planning and Zoning Commission here today who could comment on this as well. Personally, as a liaison to the Planning and Zoning Commission, I would be in support of that.
Do you want to make a motion then?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we table the discussion of draft ordinances 425, or for section 425-2 and 425-27, so that we can explore further the McCormick and Taylor suggestions, and the Planning and Zoning Commission can work with them to refine and expand the draft ordinances.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Does anybody have anything to say?
Yeah,
Council?
does this mean that in the meantime, what rules are we going to follow, and will we punish the people between the time now, or we're going with one set of rules and then change it?
I think what this means from the building inspector's perspective is that we won't be permitting anything at this point in time until this is all refined. So until planning comes back with a further recommendation, and they may come back with something more specific to pervious surfaces right away, but there are all sorts of things to look at in here, from green roofs to some other land use planning issues that planning could certainly look at.
So does that prohibit somebody from putting in a driveway that is non-pervious?
It would, I think what Susan will say to people is that I'm not going to permit this, we're going to wait until see what the new ordinance is.
Okay.
One note, it's important, I think there's still some confusion out there. It's important to note that nothing in either of these ordinances would require people to rip out their existing driveways or paved surfaces and replace them. Then that'd still be true going forward.
But in the meantime, if somebody was putting a driveway in, they'd have to put in something that was pervious.
They would have to put in something pervious, or they would be required to wait until this was finalized, I think is what
Okay.
Mr. Gravier is saying.
Mayor, am I correct in, I seem to remember reading, if you were replacing an existing driveway more than 50%, these rules would still apply to you?
Right, yes.
The new rules?
New rules.
You're grandfathered in on what you have, but not replacing that.
Right, exactly.
Thank you.
And to be clear, to repeat what Mr. Edmondson just said, Susan will tell people you can proceed with what's listed here, or you can wait to see what the Planning Commission enacts.
Right.
And that's a legal doctrine called pending ordinance doctrine, and we've had our attorney review it in light of this particular tabling, and he said that it was fine as long as we didn't discriminate against a particular person, that it applied to all. I would like to just say one thing, that I think this is, we really appreciate the Planning and Zoning Commission bringing this forth, because it is an issue that we need to address. This is in terms of just making it, more focused and more comprehensive, and I think it's wonderful that we have this expert available to us to be able to do that.
I have a question. So the purpose of these two agenda items as first readings, it's a little different, because we're not doing anything other than, we don't even know what the new ordinances are,
No,
so.
we're sending it back.
So why do I'm a little confused why this is even considered a first reading and not just saying.
Well, the item, we had to consider it after we had the hearing. So this is the consideration. We could have passed it today if we wanted to,
Yes, what?
pass this ordinance.
Except we don't have an ordinance.
And that's what we're saying. We're saying, we did have an ordinance.
Yeah, the existing ordinance.
We did, no.
The one,
There was a proposed one.
there was a proposal that we had a hearing on, this one here.
Yes,
Yeah.
but that's not what we're.
No, and what we're doing is, once we had the hearing, we had to bring it forth at the next meeting to determine what we were gonna do with it. And the options were to pass it, or to send it back for further work. And based upon discussions in the interim that Mr. Gravier had with McCormick Taylor and with Scott, with Mr. Edmondson, that they just shared with us, we have decided, or we're considering sending it back to them for further work.
Yeah, I'm more a little confused of how this is being addressed, as a first reading, when it's really not a first reading, because we don't know what.
Oh, no, no.
There was language, specific language for the insertion into the existing code that was presented to the public hearing and has been available to the council.
Yeah.
So that's what you were considering voting on. Our error when we created the agenda is that none of these zoning issues need a first reading since they've had a public hearing. So this is a mistake on the creation of the agenda.
That's, I was a little
So,
confused. Yeah.
so that's a mistake, that's an error. So they could be voted on just as your suggestion was voted on.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Is there any further discussion by council members?
Yeah, okay, so we haven't agreed to do this, so what are we enforcing? If we don't have a code to enforce, what are we enforcing?
When you table this, what you'll do is say to someone that walks in, they want to rip their driveway, the building inspector will say, you can follow what's listed here, or you can wait to see what's created in the future.
But it's not an ordinance. How can
No,
she?
it's a pending ordinance.
pending
And once it's been
Once it's
introduced to the
pending? Okay.
public, and
Okay.
the public has been put on notice through a hearing,
Okay.
it's considered a pending notice ordinance until something is done with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a practice based on case law. It's called the
Right, okay.
pending ordinance doctrine.
We've used that in the past.
Yes.
Yes.
I think it's also important to note that there's broad public support for the ordinance as drafted, and what the intent of working with McCormick and Taylor would be is not actually to make it more restrictive. It would be to find, to more clearly define the goals and to find alternate paths towards compliance. So to Mr. Gravier's point, if somebody came and wanted to do something less pervious than what's in this ordinance,
Okay.
the building inspector could say to them, you may just want to wait, until planning and zoning is done with their work on the updated. Otherwise, you can comply with this section.
And when you look at this, and no matter what you're thinking of, whether it be wet gardens or runoff, a lot of options are created. And one of the things I think you'll come out of all of this with are other options, say for driveways specifically, that accomplish the exact same thing, but give a homeowner more options than just pervious or impervious, so.
And there were a lot of good, suggestions. There was a lot of support for the proposed ordinance, but there were also a lot of good suggestions that came forth from the public as to how to make it better, or how to make it different, so we appreciate
I
that.
think, Mayor, one of the, from my readings, one of the biggest issues were the cost of going to a pervious versus a non-pervious. It wasn't like a double, it was significantly more. And the other thing is, we were brought to our attention that the town doesn't, when they do town-owned parking lots, they're not making them pervious because of cost also. So do you want the people in the town have to pay a zero amount of money to repave a town parking lot pervious versus, using standard practice today?
But I think that these people from McCormick Taylor too have volunteered that there are ways of doing it without directing stormwater and having it have the same effect without going pervious or impervious, without going to a lot of additional expense. And that's what we'd like to look at, just to be fair to people and to provide the most efficient, cost-effective way of doing it.
And I think also to ensure that we're effectively addressing the issues at
Right.
hand, right? So, and the one thing on the pending ordinance doctrine is just that I think Planning and Zoning Commission would share the feeling that this is sort of an immediate issue, that we're seeing things turn over really quickly, and so it's heartening to know that the work that's been done is for no good, because people will still have to comply with this in the short term, and that we won't have, permits rolling across that are going to include fully paving someone's lot, which otherwise would still be allowable. So.
And I would hope that planning looks at something, the whole spectrum of best management practices for stormwater. And we get complaints many times from people that don't really understand the geography of the community about we should be doing this and we should be doing that. But these would be some of the things that we could actually do and accomplish that would have a positive effect, so.
Any further comment from council? Hearing none. Anyone in the audience have anything to say? Yes, Mr. Gong.
John Gahn, 676 Collins. Mr. Gravier, I'm a member of the Planning Commission, and I'm excited about hearing about this. I mean, we meet, I've been on it for a long time, and there are often times when we meet and there's nobody that shows up. We take our guidance from mayor and the council, and to get this input helps as we go forward. We may have gotten ahead of things with the effort on pervious materials and all, but it was, as we've been working on the comprehensive plan and all, I mean, there's a section in there for Green Bethany. This document and that engineering company can go a long way to help us fill out the whole spectrum of issues that we have been trying to wrestle with as laymen. And so thank you. I welcome that. It's too long for me to read the whole thing. But that will be very, very helpful to us. And speaking only personally as a member of the commission, the tabling of those two proposals, I'm totally in favor of that, because whatever we get is going to be better than what we had. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gahn. Oh, by the way, have you arranged your scheduling with Mr. Gravier for the parking lot?
I've left two messages for the town manager for me to do that, and he hasn't returned my call.
Well, I would tell you that that's the mayor's joke. And somehow she's put me in the middle of it, so I just want you to be aware of that, so, all right.
I have my aeration sandals with me.
Okay,
Well, then you should talk to her about how to use them, so.
thank you. Thank you for the comments too, Mr. Gahn. Anybody else? No? Okay. All right, hearing none, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor?
And this is to table these
This is
two
to
items.
yes, to table
Not to
these.
vote on them, but to
No,
table them.
yes.
Motion.
Motion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on the town's investment policy. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mayor. The council each year is required to review the investment policy of the town. Policy requires us to invest the public funds in a manner which produces the highest maximum return, but also the highest maximum security, which is a balance is difficult. Presently, we invest in United States securities issued and supported in full faith and credit by the United States government and Treasury, certificates of deposit, time deposit, and bankers' acceptance, money market accounts in commercial banks and commercial bank savings accounts, all of which are insured. I make a motion that we continue for another year and approve this policy as it is written.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion? Anyone in the audience have anything to say, Mr. Gahn?
Come on, John.
Who's this guy?
I'm glad you've overcome your shyness.
Again, John Gahn, 676 Collins. This may have already been discussed and all, but I recently became aware of some high-interest treasury bonds that are tied to inflation. And at least right now, the return on those bonds is quite high. If you buy them, they're treasury bonds, you have to hold them, I think, for 30 years, which certainly for somebody like me wasn't a good idea. But I only put that on the table because that may in fact fit a portfolio, the profile of our investment guide, and if it hasn't been looked at, would just encourage that it be looked at to see if it would add to our portfolio.
Thanks for the, I've talked to Janet about that, and we, I guess the fallback of that is the 30-year time period. And the money has to be somewhat more available, but we are looking into it.
Aren't they
Yeah, I
limited?
mean, because we have a liquidity
Right, we have,
requirement.
yes, right.
So, I mean, 30 years is
Well, we can't
long
invest too much in that, understanding that we have to
Yeah.
have the money to
Yep.
use if we need it.
yep.
Aren't they're, for personal investors, limited to $10,000 a year or something too, so I don't know.
Yeah, well,
So how far is that gonna get us?
not very far.
Yeah.
Anyone
I'm not
else?
sure a government entity has the
Yeah.
same restrictions. I haven't
Yeah,
looked
I
into it.
don't know either.
It just became available.
Anyone else?
John, I was so happy you didn't mention crypto.
Thank you.
Mayor? It, If I may, I would just like to read into the record, for the record, one of the items in our investment policy that I think is critically important. It's number 5, the objectives. The primary objectives in priority order of the town's investment action shall be 1, safety, 2, liquidity, and 3, return on investment.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. And the final item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on a contract submitted by I.G. Burton for the purchase of a 2022 Chevrolet Tahoe Special Service Vehicle in the amount of $44,787. Mr. Gravier.
Mayor, Council, you have a purchase order and a contract in front of you for the purchase of a 2022 Chevrolet Tahoe for $44,787. This is sole source coming off the state contract. This vehicle will go to the code enforcement officer. The code enforcement officer's truck will go to the water department. We are adding a 4th employee in the water department. And right now, with issues with the availability of a truck that we would like to put in the water department, they're just not available. So we're doing this move around. His truck will go to the water department for their 4th new employee, and this Tahoe will be driven by the code enforcement officer.
What is a special service vehicle?
It has rubber floor mats and a lack of other accoutrements and options.
No air conditioning?
It is air conditioned. It does have a radio, but not a lot more. So.
And those are hard to come by today. Nobody wants those.
Well, then when you go to get 3/4 ton with a utility body, it's even harder. So we'll deal with that hopefully next year maybe.
Yeah, that's a great price, quite honestly.
Just being able to get one is
Yeah, I know, but I mean,
yes.
the availability is one, and that price is an excellent price.
I'll tell you how difficult it is to get a Tahoe. I've been trying to get a Tahoe since October the 7th of 2022. It's almost 8 months, and I'm still on the list.
Well, here's one for 54 for you. So.
There's other reasons why you haven't got it, but that's not.
Oh, okay. Credit.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Anyone in the audience? Okay, hearing none. We have a motion on the floor, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Anything else? Well, we'd like to thank you all for coming, and I'd like to have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourn. Thank you.
I reached out to him, I didn't hear.